everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy weekend, happy Sunday. We are really pleased that you are up and awake and with us for this amazing conclusion to Accessible Authors. This is session 6 of Accessible Authors, and it's a week-long event that's been hosted by Children Today to celebrate disability and the power of storytelling. My name's Fiona, and I'm a fundraiser with Children Today. And in this session, we are delighted to welcome the very glamorous Anne Alcott, who will be reading from her work. So hi, Anne, good morning.
Yeah, good lunchtime over here, almost, from the Netherlands.
Absolutely. We're so thankful to have you here with us today. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce you to our charity and to tell you a little bit about us. So Children Today is a small charity, which is basically a team of 6 ladies. And what we do is we help children and young people who are living with disabilities all the way up to the age of 25 to access adapted equipment, which is not available from the NHS. So this includes trikes, powered wheelchairs, adapted buggies, seating systems, sensory equipment, and many, many more things. We are so thrilled to be working with our authors this week to bring greater awareness to disability and storytelling. And if you or someone who you know, be it friends, family, school friends, colleagues, need our help, then please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. So you can reach us by email using the email address on the screen, or by telephone using the telephone number on the screen. This is a completely free event, and if you want more events like this in the future, then we are welcoming donations, whether they're big or small, to our charity. You can donate by texting the keyword authors to 70580, and that'll donate £3 automatically plus your standard network rate, or you can scan the QR code on the screen. So without further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Anne.
Hi.
Anne, hello, it's so nice to have you with us.
Super nice that you invited me. Thank you.
So Anne, you are an author and an illustrator based in Utrecht in the Netherlands, and you do all things creative. Before the meeting started, we were just having a little chat about everything creative. And you have found lots of fulfilment in telling stories for adults and children. And also you craft beautiful stories to show the beauty of diversity and also to help children to cope with difficult situations. And it's one way to try and erase the stigma around people who are different. So the book that Anne's going to be reading today is When Things Get Too Loud. So hi, Anne.
Hello.
I'm going to be quiet for a second.
All right. We prepared a little bit of a slideshow. Can you see if I'm going through it? Yeah, that's me. Do you see the slideshow?
There we go.
We had a link on the sign-up form. I don't know if you saw it, but basically you could download one of my philo meters. It's kind of nice if you want to follow through the book, but you know, you don't have to have it. Here's again a little how to print out and cut your philometer, and you can always do it afterwards. I know that some of my mum friends even have these on their fridge and they use them all the time, and they point at the 9 and say to their kids, okay, mummy is here, I need to have a little break. So it's really helpful to have these around the house anyway. So I've been using them throughout the book. So Tiny Horse Books is my publishing company, and these are my 2 beautiful boys that I wrote the book for. So I have 2 boys who are born in Sweden, actually. We are traveling around a little bit. And my eldest always had a lot of sensory difficulties, extra challenges. And I've noticed that it was we had trouble at play dates, and it was hard time making friends. Birthday parties were an absolute disaster. So I had a lot of questions from other parents, from teachers, from other children. Why is Jamie not participating? Why is he, harder to get around with? And I'm like, okay, so I was almost a little bit tired of having to apologize or explain. And so that is one of the reasons why I was like, okay, so this is what's going on. There's nothing wrong with it, but Jamie has extra challenges. And on the other hand, I also wanted to give him an understanding that I see you. I understand what's happening in your mind. I feel for you, and we find a way to deal with this. So a lot of books, and I think this is the reason why I started writing this book, talk about children with challenges, but I couldn't find anyone that comes from the perspective of the child. And so my main reason for this is because I wanted to tell Jamie, hey, there are kids that feel the same way, and I wanted to make him feel seen. Basically, if I start talking in the circles, please tell me. I also have ADHD, so I get on to random loops.
You are doing amazing.
Thank you. So what is sensory overload? This is what happens in the book. A lot of people can have sensory overload. I have ADHD. I'm very, very sensitive to auditive things. My youngest gets overwhelmed by groups, and my eldest has a lot of, it's fully packed on for him. And the way I can tell that he is getting overloaded is these examples here, that he gets overly excited to the point where he can't pay any attention. He can talk about stomach complaints. His breathing is getting very erratic. He can get annoyed and very tense. And yeah, tense and restless. And then I'm like, okay, I think it's time for a little bit of a timeout. Yes, so here I'm just saying that 1 in 20 people have sensory processing difficulties. So it is most common with people on the autism spectrum and people who have ADHD, but anyone can deal with sensory processing issues. And most common it is in children. A lot of people grow out of it. So this is just a little bit of how my book starts. Here you can, I just give you a little bit of the introduction of how to use the fulfilment. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and that was another thing I wanted to do, make it super simple for children who may be even non-verbal. A green, a 1 is a color where we feel good, everything is great. Then we're going up into the yellow-orange area when we're getting tense and overstimulated. And then over here, we really need to change something. And often at that point, the child won't recognize itself. So it's our job as a parent or a caregiver to maybe approach the child, even with the fulfilment, and says, where are you? How do we feel? And then I have some examples at the back of the book of how can we fix it? So what can we do to get you back down to a 1? Does that make sense?
It does. Amazing. It sounds very exciting. Before we get going, Anne, and get into reading your book when things get too loud, I was wondering if you'd be comfortable with me asking you a few questions just to kickstart our session.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, what started your interest in writing? Was there anything in particular beyond, your young boy's personal experiences?
I think I always had a close relationship to books. I was a undiagnosed ADHD girl in the 90s. You didn't think that girls had ADHD, right? It was a boy thing. And so my anxiety was very internalized, as it often is with girls. And so I was often alone. I didn't understand social dynamics so well. So books were my favorite thing to spend my time with. And I dabbled a little bit in drawing and illustrations when I was a teenager, and I always have a hand for creative things. I did clothing. I like to, crochet. There's a lot of things I love to do with my hands and be creative. And then I thought this is just a best kind of meeting of the two worlds. I can illustrate, which this was my first illustrations I had done in like over 15 years. I'm really not a professional illustrator. This is learning by doing and watching a lot of YouTube videos. And I love language, and yeah, English is not my mother language. I'm actually from Germany, so there are a lot of, it was a fun challenge as well.
Absolutely. Did you find it quite difficult to sort of switch between your languages to write in English instead of German?
Not really. I think I have an affinity for languages. My husband is from the UK, and when we met, neither of us could speak the other one's language. We managed to end up married 12 years anyway. And he still doesn't speak German. But for me, it's a fun challenge. I think languages are very creative in themselves, and I now think and dream in English too. So I haven't lived in Germany since 15 years. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's the sign of fluency, isn't it? Is when you can dream in another language. That's really amazing. So what's your writing process? How do you start off writing a book?
Often the idea comes to me, so I think of where is the need. So I have a couple of books in this series that I want to do, and I think like, what do the kids need? Where is something that what could I do or write that would help them understand themselves better and other people understand them better? And then I just play often with rhymes, and I'm cycling my kids to school every day. It's about 20 minutes. Because we cycle everywhere in the Netherlands. We don't use cars in every weather. And I get really creative on the bike for some reason. I just kind of, I think myself through rhymes, and then some ideas are coming. I was yesterday actually in the library here in Utrecht, and I have these study tables on the bike. So if you want to charge your laptop, you have to cycle and write at the same time. And I love that. It like kickstarts my thinking processes. And I think that's a thing with children with sensory needs as well. We need to do something else to focus on this. So our house is full of fidget toys, putties. If I watch TV, I need to do something next to. So having the biking and the thinking really works for me.
That's amazing. I think that's a fabulous idea, getting your exercise in while thinking and being creative and writing as well. And yeah, just we love the thought of everybody cycling everywhere. I think the roads would be a lot nicer place.
It's really lovely. Yeah.
You've mentioned, going to the library in Utrecht. Is that your favorite place to write, or do you have a different favorite place that you like to write?
To be honest, a lot of times I write on the go. I have 30-ish notebooks. I have in every bag, I have a notebook. Ideas come to me when I least expect them. So I also write novels, so that's another that's another completely different way of writing. But children's books I write on the go. I have a lot of them in my note app, on my book, and in my phone. And then when I'm satisfied that I have somewhat of a story, I start to sketch out a storybook. I have one here. I don't know if you're interested in seeing how this works. So here's my very tiny notebook for my stories. So storybooks, basically, I sketch out the pages and the scenes, and then this is a very rough, a rough sketch of how the pages look like. Then I illustrate them, and then I print them out and see if I'm happy with the colors and everything, and then I put everything together. So this is how, yes.
That's brilliant. I mean, we were having a discussion about illustration earlier. So you've actually illustrated and done all of the drawings for your books.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, how do you illustrate your books? And also, what is it that you love about illustration?
Okay. I have rough sketches, as you've seen, and then I like to take the rough sketches into my iPad. I make photos, I render them, and I play with color palettes and composition. Um, yeah, and then I print them out. What was the question? Sorry.
Sorry. So, how do you go about illustrating a book? Like you were telling me what you use to illustrate.
Yeah, so I used the iPad, and I just forgot what the app was called. I did 2 illustration classes in the last 6 months because I wanted to find my own style a little bit more. So I experienced more with actual pens. Often I find actually it makes the most fun if I use very simple materials, like I use the coloring pens of my children to play with color. And I don't want to get too technical into the illustration part. I just try to have it easy and accessible. And my illustrations, they do change throughout the books I'm writing, because I'm still trying to find my niche. But it's and I send it a lot to my friends and say, is this any good? So.
Yeah, it's lovely to be able to bounce off people as well. Did you like illustrating and drawing when you were at school, when you were little?
Yes, I think so. I was always very good in arts, because it's not a social it's not a social kind of thing you have to do. You're very much in your own head. I always had a lot of imagination, so and it's fun. To be honest, it's quite challenging to draw children or people overall, because they always have to be recognizable. They have to make, you know, as soon as you change the head, it's a different age, and there are so many little things you need to be aware of. Um, but yeah, I think I usually listen to audiobooks while I'm drawing, so I have 2 things going on as well, so I can focus better on both. Yeah.
It's a lovely way of sort of making sure that you're comfortable and confident and expressing yourself as well. And Savannah, who's 8 years old, wants to let you know that your drawings are so amazing, she's told
Oh,
us.
thank you. That is so sweet.
So you mentioned that you absolutely love to read, and I am definitely with you. I'm obsessed with reading. So I just wanted to know, what was your favorite book growing up? Did you have a particular favorite book?
Actually, yes, I haven't thought about it in a while, but there's one coming to my mind immediately, and that's The Never-Ending Story from Michael Ende, because it's a German author. So the book is originally in German. And what fascinated me was that the text is in red and green. So when you were inside the book, it's in one color, and when you're inside the boy's head, it's in another. So this is how it switches through the story. And I just thought that is such a creative way of pulling the reader into a story. And yeah, it kind of stuck with me. That was a beautiful illustrations, the chapter openings, and yeah, I like new ways of telling stories. So I think that was my favorite book. Yeah.
It sounds really, really cool. I've seen the film, I've never read the book, so maybe it's something.
Very different kind of feel, very different kind of story. Definitely worth reading, also as an adult.
Excellent. I hope you can still hear me. My camera's just decided to switch itself off. Oh, I'm back again.
Yeah.
So do you have a favorite genre that you like to read? Do you like to read poetry or novels or nonfiction?
I have to read across the board, as I also, with a different pen name, write novels. So I read anything from romance to thrillers to horrors to short stories to poetry. I have no specific genre that I like the most, because I think that keeps me on my toes. But I'm definitely the person that buys the most children's books in my house. We have so many kids' books. Yeah, I see buying books and reading books is a different kind of hobby. So, you know, I have a collection. I'm working on my own personal library. Yeah, but I even read graphic novels, and I'm just I think if you're too much going on one niche as a writer, you can get up kind of blindsided at the different ways people can be creative. So I enjoy reading across the board.
Amazing. I love that you've pointed out that buying books and reading are very separate things. I feel like I'm very successful in both.
I keep telling my husband that. He doesn't understand.
So do you have a favorite character that you've created in your writing, and what is it that you love about them?
Is it the snail? It's possibly the snail. This is actually a fidget toy, and it smells really good. I think because and he's also on the cover, you see him here. Once again, here he's on the pages everywhere. I think because he's kind of like a silent observer of everything. There's a reason this plays around a snail, but it's after the reading. I'm gonna go into that.
Amazing. I think he's a very cute snail as well, and I liked him when I was reading your book as well.
Thank you.
You've referred to fidget toys quite often as we've been having this little chat. So I was just wondering, how do fidget toys help you personally or your little boys? And do you have a favorite?
I'm having a favorite here one now. It's a ring I can twist. I love it. I'm like fidgeting under the table the whole time. I think what it does is I have a need for sensory input. And if I don't get that almost out of the way, I cannot concentrate on what you're saying. My mind will drift. So I might look busy and I'm not focused on a conversation, but if I don't get my bodily needs out, I won't be able to, my mind will drift away. So it is really important, and I see that with my kids as well. There is a fine line about having a sensory help you concentrate on something, and then there's a fine line with being too distracted. So we have rubber bands underneath the tables for my kids' feet. That really helps. We have a sort of putty they can knead while they're doing their homework. I think those kinds of things are really helpful. And I have sensory toys like these rings and stuff in the pockets of my jackets as well. I just, it's nice. I think a lot of people do it, and then they tend to start biting their nails, or or my kids have like holes inside their t-shirts because they're like doing this the whole time. And I think if it's more common and if adults use it, it kind of makes the kids feel less weird. It's like, mommy's using it too. I need it as well. It's totally fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's such good advice. It's, it's okay to express what you need to feel good and to concentrate and to be, the most comfortable version of you. And I also love spinner rings. I make my own, so I am 100% with you there.
Oh, fabulous.
Just to sort of conclude this little interview session, I guess, before we start reading, and if you had one piece of advice that you could offer young writers, what would it be?
Don't compare yourself to other people. If you give 1,000 people in the room the same prompt, they're all gonna write the story in a different way. You are unique in your own way. Just focus on what makes you happy. And a book in process looks very different than an edited, finished book that has gone through a lot of eyes and a lot of edits in the bookstore. So, start creating, don't compare yourself, and find your own unique voice. I think that's probably advice I should probably take more myself too.
It's really, really beautiful advice. And to be honest, I think sometimes it's helpful, isn't it, to have a reminder. And I think it's particularly beautiful that you've said 1,000 people, they're given the same prompt, they all do things so differently, and it's so true of life. So I'm just going to get our slides back, and then we will get started with our reading, if that's all right with you, Anne. There we go.
So I'll be reading the book, and Fiona will do the backgrounds. That's where we start.
Absolutely.
Okay, so yes, I'm gonna read from When Things Get Too Loud, my very first children's book. And I'm particularly proud of the little snails in it. Just saying. Okay, when things get too loud. Have your little philometer in your hand if you have one. Commander Bow is ready for flight, rising up to the stars and into the night. What an adventure! Space is going to be fun. I am feeling like a number one. Crash, bang, klur. The vase that was my rocket ship lies broken on the floor. I give a quick apology, but Mum points at the door. Go on, she says, to the garden with you. I grab my favorite coat. I'm feeling like it too. I rush outside. The grass tickles my toes. I follow the trail of the garden hose. The yellow sun shines down too bright. I need to shade my eyes from light. A bird chirps high up in the tree. I am feeling like a number 3. I smell Mum's flowers blooming ahead. The smell is too strong. It's stuck in my head. I hear in the distance the slam of a door. I am feeling like a number 4. Behind the house, a train runs past, its windows rushing by so fast. I feel its movement in the ground. The whistle blows. I turn around. Bees are buzzing around their hive. I am feeling like a number 5. A moving truck crosses the road. A man steps out to clear its load. A boy appears, a boy like me. He waves his hand. I turn to flee. I only want one thing, escape. I'm feeling like a 6, a 7, an 8. There's shed. My heart thumps as I race. I close the wooden door and welcome the dark space. I crouch between the boxes and inhale. My eyes find something shiny, small. Snail. Its house is made of silver. Its eyes are not afraid. While I watch my tiny friend, the noise, the smells, the colors fade. The curious creature looks back up at me as it sits on the wall, as calm as can be. I let out a deep breath. My heart races no more. I'm feeling like a 6, a 5, a 4. On the snail's back stands a spiraling shell. Oh, how I wish I could have one as well. When the world gets too much, I could curl up inside. I'd have on my back my own place to hide. Mum calls. I look up. She made me a treat. I take my new friend as I jump to my feet. I open the door, the snail on my palm. The new boy stands there. I try to stay calm. He smiles and says his name is Joe, and I feel the numbers want to grow. At first, a 4, a 5, a 6, but the little snail is playing tricks. My fingers traces along its lines. I watch how the trail sparkles and shines. Everything eases when I watch my friend, and for once, I don't have to pretend. I am actually okay. I raise my hand and then say, hey. Joe nods. Sometimes I feel the same as you, but slow breaths on my music and I'm from 10 to a 2. Joe, have you ever flown to the moon? The snail and I are heading there soon. We find a new spaceship. The engines are on. Ready for takeoff? 3, 2, 1. If you feel like Bo or Joe, remember it's okay. Everyone finds their own way. So that was the story. And here are a few tools in my book that looks a little bit different than on the slides that we like to go to after we read the book. I talk them through with my kids. We have deep breaths. Some people love to listen to their favorite music. It can look like clapping or snapping can relax someone. We use a lot of special chew toys in our house, so they don't make holes in their t-shirts. Some people need big crushing hugs, so they feel like they're safe and there's a certain pressure. If that isn't possible, weighted blankets are also a great way to get that needed pressure. Yeah, so personally, I like to use noise cancelling headphones, and yeah, I love to have a good cuddle as well. That really helps. And then at the very end of the book, your kids can draw what helps them and color in their little snail friend. Yes. And why the snail? Because it's a little bit of an odd, maybe an odd little friend to choose for a book like this. But there is a backstory for this. So in the book, there is this passage on the snail's back stands a spiraling shell, or how I wish I could have one as well. So there are two reasons why I chose the snail. One part is they're very sensitive animals. If they feel overwhelmed, they go into their shell where it's dark and they feel confined and they feel happy. And another reason is, and you see here on the second photo, when my kid was young and we were still living in Sweden, he used to collect snails. And he puts them in his little bike basket, and they would actually come and crawl up like this and sit with him on the bike on the way to daycare. And he had a special connection to these animals, and I thought it was so nice. And whenever he came to daycare with his little snails in his hands, it was almost like a sort of icebreaker between him and the other children. They could talk about the snails, they could look at their little trails. He can talk about his favorite ones, and maybe some kids were like, ew, that is gross, and I don't know, but at least there was a sense of connection, because it can be scary when you're easily overwhelmed to go into a group. And yeah, so that helped him. He took his snails everywhere, and I just thought it's a nice metaphor for a safe place as well. Yes.
Amazing. So I see that you've got lots and lots of books that are available at the moment. And do you want to talk us through some of the books that you've got going, and maybe what they're about?
So lots and lots is a little bit of an overstatement. I only have 3. But, basically, I have When Things Get Too Loud is also available. I translated it to German and to Dutch because I live in the Netherlands. So those are available. There is a second book in the Bo series. This is Bo and his little snail again at a birthday party. And it also uses the philometer. Here we have the philometer again. And it's about Bo having to battle invisible birthday monsters that are the sensory overloads. And then he finds ways to deal with it. It might not be the best ways that the parents think, but it's his way, so that's fine. And then unrelated to that sensory series is I Have Trouble in the Pickle Jar, which is about a little pickle who lives in a jar in the fridge, and he doesn't like to be touched. He needs to have his own space, and the other pickles don't necessarily accept his boundaries. And then fun stuff happens. So yeah. But I'm working on 2 more books. I hope to publish one this year. It would be another one in the sensory series, where we follow Bo, and it's more about the feeling of clothing, of feeling confined, of tags, that kind of thing. And then another book that I'm planning is a book for teachers at schools.
Amazing. It's all very, very exciting. And is the sensory series going to follow Bo all throughout his journey? Is it going to follow him as he gets older?
I haven't thought about that. Maybe I should do that. I do think that my rhyming style and the illustrations I do is more fitting towards smaller children, and so therefore the the main protagonists in those books are usually the same age. So I just feel like there's a lot of bow in that age that I can show through a different series of books while he is. I don't know how old he is. I guess he's around 6, 5, 6.
So we're learning more about Bo in this meeting as well. I think it's fab.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell us a little bit more about where we can find out about you?
Oh, yes. Did I put that in here? Oh, yeah. There you go. I have a slide. You can find me on Instagram. I would love if you find me there. I'm happy if you drop me a message or tag me when you read one of my books. I'd love that. If you want to get in contact with me personally, email is also fine. And I do have a website, which I probably should update a little bit more than I do. But yeah, so these are the places you can find me. And my books are available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Waterstones, etc., etc. Yes.
Amazing. We've got a few questions that are coming in for you from our audience, if that's okay. So
Yes.
I'm going to make us full screen so you can see our lovely faces. Particularly Anne's looking very glamorous this morning. Lovely Leonie, who is nearly 6, she wants us to know. She would like to know, why did you want to live in the Netherlands?
Oh.
And do you like it? And they said, and I'm going to absolutely mess this up, I'm so sorry. They visited Dunel? Dun
Oh, I think that's a theme park down now. Yes.
there we go.
Yes.
So why did you move to the Netherlands?
Um, I was living for nearly a decade in Sweden with my husband. We moved up there because of his work, and then we had our boys there. And while I love Sweden, and it's really lovely for smaller children, the weather is very cold. And I'm a very social person, and the general suite is not. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I felt like I couldn't, even after that long of a time, I still wasn't really part of the community. And if you have children without any sort of support around, it can be very isolating. As I said, I'm from Germany and my husband's from the UK. What is right in the middle is the Netherlands. And for us, it was there are a lot of positives about the Netherlands. You can bike everywhere. There's lots to do for children. The nature is beautiful. Yeah, and we are equal distance away from our families.
Amazing. It sounds like a really good compromise.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite place that you like to visit or spend time in the Netherlands?
Possibly, yeah, the library in Utrecht. I am very biased. It is a old building. It was a postal office hundreds of years ago. It is a very stunning place, and just being surrounded by books and people who enjoy books, and there's a piano and sometimes people play, and there's a cafe, and it's just you've got a beautiful view over the canals. That's my absolute favorite place to be in.
It sounds beautiful. Have you always loved spending time in libraries? When you're at school, did you enjoy the library?
Um, I try to remember if we had a library at our school. I was raised in East Germany, and I don't think we really had an extensive school library. I think that is something I'm quite jealous of kids these days. They often have these beautiful school libraries, and I think I would have loved that. But I just not even these days, if I'm not in a library, I like to go to the bookstore and you see a book that you read, and it's almost like meeting a friend. It's like, oh, hey, I know you.
That's such a lovely way of looking at it. Yeah, meeting an old friend and, reuniting with the characters in the pages as well. I think that's fab. Stephanie would like to know. Oh, Stephanie says that she loves the little snail, and there's various different coloured love hearts after her comment. She's very fond of the snail. And Savannah wants you to know that she loves the story that you've told us, and she really would like to get her hands on a copy as well. And she also wants to know, do you ever write about girls? Do you have any female characters that you like to write about?
So I have planned a couple of books from not specific perception. I think the reason why I started with Bo is that I wanted, with Things Get Too Loud, is I wanted to write a book for my kid that he finds himself. And of course, the gender should be absolutely irrelevant. So I haven't really thought about it, but yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's a fabulous suggestion. There's another question, which is quite an interesting one as well, which is, do you ever write about dyslexia? Because I think it's come from Savannah again. Dyslexia comes with its amazing powers, she's mentioned. Would you ever consider writing about dyslexia?
You know what? I'm gonna write this down as a suggestion because this is a very good idea because my husband is actually dyslexic and so is my eldest child. But yeah, you know what? That is a fabulous idea. I will get to that. Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of us do know people with dyslexia. My sister has dyslexia and my husband has dyslexia
Yeah.
as well. So it's a really lovely idea, Savannah. Thank you so much for that amazing suggestion. Yeah, have we got any other questions, chaps? That's a wonderful question about dyslexia.
Yes, I
Oh,
will.
and Savannah wants to tell us that she's dyslexic too. Thanks, Savannah.
Thank you for
You're
telling.
doing a great job.
Yeah. No, that is a really fantastic idea. So yes, there's lots of books that I'd love to write and lots of books that I'd love to illustrate. Yeah, it's time mostly. I would love to do this
Yeah.
time if I could. That would be really great.
I think it's quite interesting that Savannah's talked about dyslexia powers.
Mhm.
I was wondering, Anne, do you think that there's some powers, some special gifts that go along with ADHD and neurodiversity?
Absolutely. I don't think that I could illustrate and write and edit and publish my own books if I didn't have ADHD. I think the hyper focus is really something that helps me push through. If I am passionate about something, I there's nothing in my way that there comes a certain push for myself. We have a lot of drive. People with ADHD seem you have a lot of drive. We're very passionate about the things that we love. Um, I can follow several conversations at the same time. My husband does not understand how I'm doing it. And yeah, I think we tend to be really, really creative and great storytellers. So there are so many things. I would not give it up for the world. And I see while my children struggle, they are also brilliant and bright and very, yeah, great kids. So yes.
I think that's really beautiful. And I was also wondering, so you mentioned that sometimes your children struggle a little bit, and we noticed that Bo struggles a little bit at times. Do you have any advice for someone who's struggling, particularly with sensory overload?
Um, I think a lot of it needs to happen from the caregiver side. If we're talking about children, it's a lot about preventing the sensory overload before it happens. If I know my kid will absolutely hate a certain piece of clothing because it makes him feel constricted, I will not force him into it. If I know that he cannot sit longer than 10 minutes on a project because his body needs movement, then I will make sure that we take breaks and have conversations with teachers about this as well. our teachers, and that is the reason why I want to write this, why I'm working on this teacher book. Our teachers are very helpful. Most teachers want your child to be happy, and they're asking for tools. So preventing sensory overload, I think, is the key as much as possible. It's not always possible, but yeah.
Fabulous advice. You mentioned having conversations with teachers, and I'm interested about your relationship with teachers. So did you have a teacher when you were growing up that you found particularly inspirational?
I think only my, not necessarily. I think only my art teacher I liked a lot. She saw something in me. I think that the other teachers didn't. I was constantly overwhelmed by math and anything technical, and I just couldn't understand it. And then you get into this freezing, this fight or flight situation where you're just locked up if you don't understand something, and you don't understand why you particularly struggle in the class when other kids aren't. And I think with art, it was something that was intuitive for me and came naturally. And I think my teacher saw that. So she offered afternoon classes, and we went to the museum, we were sketching statues. So I do vividly remember her focus on me was something very special, because it was the first time I think a teacher didn't see me as difficult. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, that's lovely. Leonie would like to know, do you have a book in the works about people who have physical disabilities?
I think that is a great idea. However, I think other people are possibly better candidates to write those books, because I like to write about things that happen within my family and that I know about, and I don't want to take anyone else's space away. I would love to collaborate on a book about disabilities if there would be someone who would be interested in that. However, I don't think that I am the right voice in doing that, because I don't have an insight in those struggles, and I don't want to, kind of like pretend I do. So yeah. Does that make sense?
That's a fabulous answer. Yeah, we've really put you on the spot today, Anne, I think.
These are great questions. Thank you.
It is. It's really good. It's really insightful, everybody. And thank you so much for these wonderful questions. Just really quickly, does anybody else have any other questions for Anne? These are, like I said, brilliant. I'm wondering, Anne, just because we've got a couple of minutes left in our meeting, would you ever consider writing about animals other than snails? Or is the snail your favourite?
I think I just like to draw snails, I like to. I am really crappy at drawing other animals. I think that is part of the reason. I'm a big fan of cats, so I will say, I never say never. There is a thing that a lot of times children's books tend to have a lot of animals in them instead of children. And I know as a reader, often people want to have the actual human child in focus instead of an animal. So I don't know. Why not? Maybe a cat book. Maybe I'll do a cat book once.
Amazing. Right. Well, to be honest, I think we're nearly at the end of our time. So, Anne, I just wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for joining us this morning, and particularly on your weekend. We really appreciate it. And it's been really interesting. I've gained a lot of insights about the way that I handle sensory overload personally as well. So thank you for all of that wonderful positive advice and for your perspective. We really do appreciate it. I'm just going to bob my final slide up. So thank you so much for that question, Savannah. Savannah's asking, where can we get hold of your books, Anne?
Yes, you can get my books either over Amazon. You can buy them over Waterstones and Barnes and Noble. you can, if I'm in the area, you can also buy them directly from me. I'm happy to sign them. I do travel a couple of times a year to the UK. Yeah, I would be always very happy to make personal package and send you books directly from my house. So just let me know, and I'm happy to sign them and put in some goodies. So yes.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Anne. Savannah, I hope that answered your question in such a wonderful way. I would be shaking
Just
with excitement to
just
hear
drop
that.
me a message on Instagram, and we'll figure it out.
Anne's Instagram is wonderful. I follow her on Instagram. So please do follow at Tiny Horse, and you will be able to get her. If you enjoyed today's session, this is the last session of Accessible Authors, and we have been super privileged to work with these incredible authors who've been so open and honest and have given us amazing advice. Then please do let us know. Give us a shout out on our social media. You can get us on Facebook at Children Today UK Charity, on Instagram at Children Today Charity, or on Twitter, now called X, at Children Today, and tag us using the hashtag accessible authors if you'd like. Savannah has also let us know she's going to do it. She's going to make sure she's following up with you on Instagram.
Looking forward to it.
So thank you so much, Anne, for joining us. We really, really appreciate you. And we are going to conclude this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you for coming, and have a lovely Sunday.